change the world. Whether we're economists or we're educators, we want to have kids get into the right classes. Whether we're in economic development, we want to grow our ecosystem in terms of the economy and see wages rise for people, or workforce, finding new jobs for people. So, not a surprise, I'm here to talk to you today about labor data. But to go back to Kyle's comment, that was 2013, and that was a very heavy computer back then. So I do remember it, and my arm was sore after that. But in any case, your focus determines your reality. So in this presentation, I really have three parts. I'll start out with what labor data are available. Are they all equal? And what are some of the level of detail that you might need on your job? And then we'll talk about how different goals impact strategies and the industries that you're actually attracting. And then finally, we'll end with how to apply data to tell a story. So first, what labor data are available? Two types, and as most of you know, we have the traditional LMI data that we get from the federal government, and then we have real-time LMI data. On the traditional side, examples are current employment statistics, current population survey, quarterly census of employment and wages. And so if you're a big labor geek, then you know all those sources. But if you're not used to looking at all that data, basically this is what you hear from the media when they tell us what the unemployment rate is, or how fast employment is growing, or what occupations are growing or are in demand. On the other hand, the real-time LMI come in the form of job ads. And so from our perspective, we call that in Jobs EQ the real-time intelligence. We also have skills data from resumes, and you probably have seen that most recently in your Jobs EQ data. And then the characteristics of the traditional LMI data is they're the definitive benchmarks. They tell us the absolute numbers. They get revised monthly or annually, but they are the benchmark numbers. Problem is there's a time lag, like the quarterly census of employment and wages. It could be 3 to 6 months or even 9 months with a time lag. The other data, at least a month time lag. But when we're looking at the real-time LMI data, the advantage is that you can see information that's not tracked by BLS. For example, cyber is not an occupation yet, but we can see that in the real-time data, and it's updated daily. Also, it's more granular, so there are about 820 SOC codes that the BLS tracks, and it's at a 6-digit level. The longer the number, the more detailed it is. But when we go into the real-time information, we could go down to an 8-digit, so much better detail. And then also, we can look at a firm level. If you have a firm in your region like Northrop Grumman and you're interested in if they're expanding, you can get that type of information from LMI data, from the real-time data. And we can go down to the county level and even lower than that in terms of that data. Disadvantages, though, is that when we pool the data, and Greg Chmura is going to have a talk more detailed on this later today and tomorrow, you have to deduplicate it. And then there are some companies like trucking that they'll have ads. They may be hiring 3 people, but they'll have ads all the way from Virginia down to Florida along the interstate because they need someone along that line. But they'll have many ads, and then we have to deduplicate that. So I'm going to take you through some of the data in terms of the RTI, the job postings, and the data we get from the government by using this example that we got a couple of years ago. And this is something real that we had in our chat, and maybe this person is here, I don't know. And they said, how do I look up labor stats for geospatial technology in my region? It may fall under so many SOC codes or industries. The request is from a school district to have stats to support the startup of a new GIS program. Help, this is not urgent, but it's needed by the end of today. So here's how we were able to help out this person. First of all, when we look at emerging occupations, so again, the BLS has these occupations and SOC codes, and every year they'll add some. And in 2018, if you look at this in more detail, GIS was not one of those that was being added. So we don't have GIS in the BLS system. But there are 3 SOC codes that were being added that perhaps GIS would be located in them. So, but again, we can't pull out GIS with the BLS statistics. When we go to the the all other, typically for an occupation, they'll have different occupations, like here, computer user support specialist, network specialist, and then they'll take everything else and lump it in this all other category. And it's highly likely that GIS is in this all other category. But once again, we don't know how much of that is GIS. So when we go to the job postings, we've got 8-digit SOC codes, and we've got the greater detail. So in fact, you can see there for this individual that within her region or his region, there are 37 job openings right now for GIS, people who have GIS background, which would give this person enough information to show, yes, it is in demand, so we can add that curriculum to our offerings. And then also, we can look at the roles in GIS SOC codes. So we can look more specifically at GIS, and you can see here that it varies greatly in terms of the type of skills people have, from at the top, analysts, technical, then designers, and you can see more specifically some engineering. So again, there are a broad set of skills that these individuals have in GIS. And then we can look at the hard skills. So here I searched on the word Esri ArcGIS, and notice some of the other skills that these individuals need to have, and then this would help the educators determine, okay, what other classes do we need to put in with this GIS? You can see Python is one of them, JavaScript is there, computer networking. So again, when we're looking at the data that are job postings, we have a whole lot more detail that we can count on. And then here, we searched on Esri ArcGIS again in the RTI job postings, and here you can see that it's used across multiple occupations. There at the bottom, you can see software quality in the middle. Electrical engineers use GIS software, database administrators. So again, a lot of detail that we can glean from using the job postings data. And then switching a little bit, some other ways that you could use the job postings data is you can see who's hiring in your region. So here we're looking at some firm-specific data, and you can see HCA is hiring the most number of firms, and CFI is down the fourth there. But you can use this from the business retention point of view, or you can use it from the point of view if you are in Cleveland, Ohio, and you want to look at Toledo and see who's expanding in Toledo or in Columbus, then you could use that information to see, oh, an expanding firm may be a potential attraction target. If they're expanding and they can't find the workforce in Toledo or Columbus, maybe we can attract them to Cleveland to expand there. And one more example on the job postings before we move to the next section. Educators. When you look at the firms that are doing the most hiring, here we're looking at radiologic technologists. You may want to call on some of the biggest companies to be on your advisory board to help you make sure that your curriculum that you're teaching is covering all the bases that they need. And then finally, once again, looking at radiologic technologists, you can see the certifications that they have, the hard skills, once again to bolster your program to make sure that you're producing graduates that have the skills and certifications needed. And one other area is wages. So we can look at about 10% of all the job postings provide wages. And here you can see in California, on the right-hand side with the master's degree, median wage about $73,000, and the median wage with just a bachelor's degree, $69,000. So this may help a student decide or whether they want to go for that extra degree. Is it worth it for $3,000? And then here again, you can see median wages tied to certifications. So with certain certifications, we see a big jump in wages, again, to help the student determine, should I go ahead and get that certification? Will it pay off for me in the long run? So now, switching gears here to the second topic, do different goals impact strategy and industry attraction? So do any of you know Florence May Chadwick? I don't see any hands going up. Okay, so she's a swimmer, and she decided she wanted to swim from Catalina Island to basically the Los Angeles area. I think that's 20, I don't remember how far that is, but it's several hours. In any case, she set out to swim one day, and she had a couple of boats flanking her just in case there were sharks or she got tired or whatever. And her mom was in one of the boats, and a heavy fog set in. So she was, after a couple hours, getting tired, and she said to her mom, I don't think I can make it. So she swam one more hour, got in the boat with this heavy fog, found out she was 1 mile from the shore. So a couple months later, she did the same thing. The heavy fog set in again, and this time she made it. And her mom asked her how she did it. She said, because I kept on visualizing the shoreline. So that made the difference. So when we think about our goals, we need to not just try to grow. We need to see, are we decreasing poverty? Are we raising wages? And we need to have specific goals that we're looking at. So one of the things that we do to try to help people understand that your goals matter is to show them this little matrix here, and we put in information such as wealth. And wealth is average wages. Do you want to lift average wages? Employment. Do you want to grow employment, or do you want to, in terms of numbers or the percentage? And some people in rural areas say, you know, it would be great if I could raise wages, but there's no way. We just want to get firms to locate here. So their goal is usually to increase employment. We can look at innovation, and that is over the long run, we need to see small businesses grow. We need to see R&D happening in our area, and that would be innovation occurring. And then some people say, let's just work on competitiveness. That is, let's try to attract industries that have that can use the occupations that we have in this area, and where we have a location quotient that's high, meaning that we have a competitive advantage. So location quotient is the percentage of people in a particular industry relative to the US. So if it's over 1, you have a competitive advantage. So then what we do with some of our clients is then we sit down and say, how important are these items to you? And I almost equally weighted everything here. But typically they might say, okay, wages is 50%, or employment growth is 70%. And then after we do that, we'll look at the, here we're just looking at the major sectors or the clusters. And based on the weighting system, this one is saying that education and health ranked number 10 out of all the clusters. It ranked number 1 in employment. It ranked number 1 in employment percent growth, number 12 in small business, 9 in R&D, 5 in the occupation mix, and 11 in the location quotient, which gave us an average ranking of 7. And you could see the others indicating that education and health is the best one in terms of what our goals are. If we were to change our goals, then, for example, if we put average wages as the highest, most likely professional business services are going to show up at the top. So this is one way that we start helping people think about goals do matter in terms of what industries I'm trying to attract. And then what we'll do typically is create this climate capability matrix. So in terms of the US climate, how are industries growing at this point in time? What is their projected growth rate? What is the innovation potential? What are the ripple effects in terms of a multiplier? How many jobs is it creating for every one job? And then we'll look at the region in terms of their capabilities. So this one we did in Detroit. We'll look at the industry concentration, the changes, employment growth, innovation potential, and again, the multipliers. And once we've done that, at the 4-digit NAICS code level, we end up with this matrix that's showing us on the bottom Detroit's capabilities. So the further to the right you go, the more capable they are of having this industry grow. The further up you go on the scale, that's the national climate. So the national climate is best at the top. So we like to go with industry attraction then. In the big right-hand corner, those circles are based on the employment size. So you can see here, computer systems design, they have good capabilities in Detroit, and that industry in the US is doing good. So that's one industry that we would want to target to grow. So again, another way to look at the goals and which industries to target. And tomorrow, I'll be speaking with Pete Paradosi from Southwest Indiana, where we did quite a bit of work with them, and now they're taking it to the next level, and he'll explain this, of how do we create strategies and look at the drivers of growth for every one of those goals that we're trying to lift. So Then finally, how to apply data to tell your story. And here I'll give one example, and Brian Shelley, wherever he is, will be giving some presentations on this tomorrow, how to present data to your board to make it understandable. So here, typically what we'll do, or a way I think is best to start thinking about putting together your presentation and data, is what is your labor shed? So that is, where are you attracting your workers, or if you're an educator, what is your footprint? And what you're looking at here is the Greensboro MSA. And that dot is a site that I'm using as an example. Now, it used to be that the best we could do, or site selectors would ask us, give me a 45-mile radius around that site. If we were just to use the MSA, which is that rectangle, it's 2,000 square miles, and there's quite a bit of people that live there, but clearly some people are going to drive from the east and the west to come in to work. And here the radius is, again, what people used to ask us to do in the past. And we have, as reserver, so we have the capability of doing a drive time. So here you're looking at a 40-minute drive time around a region or around that site, and you can see that it takes into account the interstates. So this is the most accurate way to present data. And if we're looking at a paint coatings manufacturing firm with, say, 350 people, just to give you an example how these circles would, or these different drive times would vary, you probably would need some mixing blending machine setters. And if you use the MSA as your region, you'll have 656 people potentially that you'll be saying are available for this manufacturing plant. If you have a 45-mile radius, you'd have 1,500. And we believe that would clearly overstate, because in some regions you have bridges, you have tunnels, you have mountains, and you're not going to be able to attract everyone in that 45-mile radius. And then finally, the 45-minute drive time is what we believe is to be most accurate. So that's 1,022. So once we've identified our labor shed, then we could put together a story. Here in this story, we're trying to attract a paint coating manufacturing firm. And so for this one, we go to the what if in Jobs EQ, and this is a great one for trying to show whether or not you have the pipeline, whether you're in economic development or you're supporting a role with workforce, or you're on the education side trying to see there's a new firm coming in, what kind of occupations are they going to, will be in demand and we need to train for. So here, again, 350 paint coatings firm, and the top 3 occupations, you could see mixing, blending machine setters, we're going to need 53 of those. Chemical equipment operators, tenders, we'll need 19 of those. And then when we look at how many are employed or unemployed in the region, it looks like we have plenty of people in the region to support this particular firm expanding in. But what we've learned from site selectors and expanding firms is they like to see 50 people for every one that they're trying to employ. And here in red, we only have 19 mixing blending machine setters, so we don't have enough. So what do we do, again, to support the idea that this chemical firm can move to our region? We go to the related occupations. And so here, we have 1,000 related occupations from the workforce perspective. People can be trained to move into these positions, and they're actually making less money now, so they have a motivation to. Also, we have military exits in Jobs EQ, so you can pull that data and show it to the expanding firm in terms of potential workers for the paint coating firm. And then finally, chemists, you might have noticed, was kind of short. We didn't have enough chemists, but what we can do is show that within our region, we have 8 or 9 colleges and universities that produce chemists, and to the tune of a couple hundred, 800 or so, no, more than 800. Actually, I'm going backwards. No wonder why that didn't make sense. Okay, there we go. 51 awards in chemistry. So we could say, we don't have enough people right now, but our pipeline is strong, and we'll be able to produce workers every year for you in terms of your plant. So, in conclusion, job postings, that is real-time data. They're detailed, they're timely, they're understated in some industries, so you have to watch out for that. For example, in the construction industry, often it's word of mouth rather than seeing that information on a job posting. And again, Greg Chmura will give more detail on that in his presentations today and tomorrow. We have to deduplicate that information, so it's important if you're using a source to make sure that the data are being deduplicated and is being monitored. Sites come and go on a daily basis, and so you have to take extra care from that perspective. And then focus and goals are needed. So we need to, in each of our regions, whether it's decreasing poverty or increasing the education level, we need to set goals, and we need to track them, and then we need to have strategies that help us support filling those goals to achieve your desired destiny. And then finally, make your client the center of the story, similar to what I was trying to do on that last piece of the presentation.